Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Jin Woo, so let's get right into it. Jin Woo is the main protagonist of Solo Leveling, and he was originally infamous as the weakest E rank in the world. He was just known as the weakest hunter in the world. And however, he was granted the very rare opportunity to become a player of the system, which gives him the infinite ability to basically continue growing without any limits. And as a result of the advantages and opportunities offered to him by the system, he eventually rose to be an S rank hunter. So let's talk about it. During a quest that he was on, which was into a E rank dungeon, they actually ran into a double dungeon. And so in that, they were completely outclassed. However, when Jin Woo was about to die from the second dungeon, he was given the opportunity to become a player of the system because he had completed all of the necessary requirements for the quest Courage of the Weak. The exact requirements for the achievement are unknown, so we'll just you can sort of make estimations, but we don't really know. And so after that, Jin Woo sort of woke up in the hospital a couple of days later, and he was completely regenerated. And when he woke up, he saw this giant screen over top of his head, a screen that only he was able to see. There was no one else who could. And on that, he would get daily quests. The daily quests were, pretty basic exercises. It was like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 curls, 10-kilometer run, and I believe there might be one more thing, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And if he were not to do those daily quests, there would be a penalty, and the penalty was like being transported to this like desert area where there were just a bunch of centipedes that were trying to kill him, and he would have to survive there for 4 hours before being transported back to the real world. And as a result of completing his daily tasks, he would be given points, which he could select a certain attribute. So the attributes were, stamina and vitality and strength and intelligence. The attributes tend to mimic the attributes in like Dark Souls. So in the sense that like intelligence affects how much mana you have and how much mana it takes to conjure spells. So if your intelligence is very high, you have a lot of mana and you're able to utilize the mana to its utmost abilities, whereas if you have low intelligence, the inverse happens. And so he continues to do that, and he begins to level up. He goes from an E rank hunter to a pretty decent B rank hunter very quickly. He advances very quickly, and this was astonishing for the simple fact that the hunter system in the world of solo leveling is very rigid, in the sense that once you're placed into a category, whether E, D, C, B, A, or S, you're stuck there. That's it. There's no upwards mobility. That's it. That's all. That's about as strong as you'll ever get. You can train yourself physically, and you can train your mana spells to get a little bit stronger, but the effect is really negligible. You'll be stuck in that same category. I'm using that very vaguely because there are such a thing as reawakenings. However, reawakenings are even rarer, and so they rarely occur. And just as a quick note, because I mentioned reawakening anyway, when Jin Woo woke up in the hospital after the double dungeon, he was actually checked for reawakening. However, at the time, because he hasn't completed any achievements, or he hadn't completed any of his quests rather, his mana hadn't grown, and so when they checked him, they saw that he was still as weak as he was before, and they went, okay, well, he hasn't been reawakened, and just left. And then eventually, when he had gotten strong enough, and by strong enough I mean like he was a SS rank hunter, like one of the foremost hunters in the entire world, he went and got himself reassessed, like through the Korean agency. And when they checked his mana again, they realized that he had become the 10th S rank hunter of South Korea. And and he was not only an S rank hunter, he was like an SS rank hunter. However, they told us in the manhwa that the machine can't really create the distinction between like an S rank hunter and a national rank hunter. Once you reach an S rank, it just says unreadable, and you can't really tell how far up the scale you are in S rank, because there's a pretty big difference between a normal S rank and like a national level hunter. Those two are not even on the same level. If they were to fight, the national hunter wins with his eyes closed and his hand tied behind his back. They're not even comparable. And so Sung Jin Woo continues to train, and eventually he gets the job change quest, which gives him the, which is a quest in which he has to, defeat several monsters. And by monsters, I'm actually referring to magicians, and that's actually where he gets Igris. And so during that quest, I suppose after that quest, he is given the job of necromancer. However, because he performed so well in the quest, he was actually immediately given a promotion to Shadow Monarch, which gives him the ability to call forth more shadow soldiers than being a simple necromancer would. And so with that, he had gained the ability to call forth dead soldiers and to use them because they would have undying loyalty to him. As soon as he revived someone from death, they would have an immediate and unquestionable desire to follow his every rule. When he said something, they could not deny it, they could not say no, they simply had to go along with it. There was nothing they could do against. There were, however, exceptions, and the Queen Ant comes to mind, because even though she was technically a part of his army, he had to let her go because she was interrupting with his actual, control over the ants, and it was rather annoying to have her around. And so now I'll just go over some of the abilities that Sung Jin Woo has. He has like longevity, and by that I mean he's he is immune to all diseases, poisonous substances, and any abnormalities to his status. This buff grants him like a regenerative healing factor, which accelerates exponentially when he sleeps. However, just like a funny little thing, the system sees alcohol as a type of poison, because technically that's what that is, and so it immediately like neutralizes it, and so he can't get drunk, which is just a really funny small detail. As I mentioned before, he has immunity, which is basically the same thing. He is, if he is affected by a debuff, the debuff is automatically removed from his system. And tenacity, which is if Sung Jin Woo's health falls below 30%, this buff reduces all further damage taken by 50% in an attempt to keep him alive. Stealth, which means Sung Jin Woo is able to camouflage with his surroundings and essentially become invisible and like really, really quiet, so you can't even hear him. Bloodlust, which Sung Jin Woo is able to magically intimidate a target into submission. Quicksilver, Sung Jin Woo is able to increase his speed by 30% for a short burst. That was also known as sprint, depending on what sort of, what translation you're reading. Mutilation, which is when Sung Jin Woo rips a target to shreds with his daggers. Dagger rush, Sung Jin Woo barrages a target with his daggers from all directions. Ruler's authority, which is one of my favorite things of all time. Sung Jin Woo is able to move and control objects via telekinesis, which is so sick. Shadow extraction, obviously being able to extract a being shadow from its corpse and add it to his army. Shadow preservation, Sung Jin Woo is able to preserve his army in storage and monitor them by perceiving their senses, which is just really sick. Shadow exchange, he is able to instantly swap places with one of his shadows regardless of range. And Monarch's domain, he is able to buff the strength of all of his active shadows by 50% in battle just by summoning them, which is insanity. But, okay, and this is just a small little thing. Sung Jin Woo is now officially like the strongest hunter in the world. There's no one who stands at his level. He is just the pinnacle of humanity, essentially. He pretty early in, he was able to beat a national rank hunter. He beat the hunter from America. I'm afraid I can't remember his name off the top of my head. In a battle, and he did that relatively unscathed. He was not like tired after it. He was like, well, that's like a Tuesday, so let's just get a move on. It didn't really affect him, and that was a national rank hunter. It made no sense how he's able to do that. His strength is beyond like any semblance of reason. And I'm not really going to go any further because I don't really want to spoil stuff that's only in the light novel so far, just because, well, the amount of people who read the light novel is minuscule compared to the amount of people who read the manhwa. So I'll be avoiding all of that. And I really, if you somehow made it all the way to 10 minutes of this video, I just really want to thank you. And please, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And I'll catch you on the flip side. See ya.